So welcome you all once again on our discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So we have been discussing chapter number 2 and we'll continue from there. I hope we have discussed till chapter sloka 17 uh, last week. No, this week on Monday, isn't it? So we'll continue from there only. Okay. Anyone want to share something or have read anything from this purpose or any questions before we go ahead? Okay. Let's pray then. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna.
So to sum up, to summarize the things we have discussed as of now in chapter number 2, that we have gone through till sloka 17, where in the very first section, if you remember, in the very first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, at the end, he got actually bewildered and he said, I won't be fighting the war. And he gave 4 reasons not to fight. And the starting of chapter 2, Arjuna gave one more reason and he says, please instruct me. He surrendered into Lord Krishna. So that's also learning to us when we are confused actually about the real decision. We can actually approach to spiritual master and understand what the real duty is. And then after that, Sri Krishna started giving the knowledge to him. So first reason Arjuna gave was compassion towards his kinsmen, compassion towards his relatives, and though Krishna explaining him about the very first. So very first, he answering the very first question, the very first doubt of Arjuna with knowledge of Atma Gyan. So we discussed about that Arjuna, he actually he quoted Dharma Shastra that it's not wise to kill our own relatives, own kinsman for the benefit of or to enjoy the kingdom. And he gave reasons as well that we even by killing them, how what kind of enjoyment we will see. Even if we kill them and enjoy this, we'll get it. Everything will be reminded as a tinted from the blood of our own relatives. And then, but Krishna says that from higher than this Dharma Shastra, there is a Jnana Shastra. And then Krishna started giving the knowledge of Atma Gyan. That's the first understanding. So Bhagavad Gita chapter number 2 has 5 sections, and we are on second section where Krishna is going to give the knowledge of Atma. And in the very first 7 verses from 11 to 17, we have discussed about Krishna giving information about knowledge of soul as well, that no one can kill soul. And then Krishna says about this in proper Prabhupada mentions about the size of the soul. It is basically we take the tip of our head and divide it by 10,000 times. It's that smaller. However, it's pervade all throughout the body. Though it's small, but because of that consciousness, because of the soul within our body actually functions. So without that, the body remains dead. It can't functions. And then uh, we discussed about, even Krishna says that in a very initially of this chapter, that you are speaking like a very learned person, but you are mourning for which is not worthy of. You are mourning for the bodies, and that's not lament. And the wise person who knows this knowledge about this body and soul, they lament neither for the dead nor for the living. Right. So that's how we have seen. And then also after that we discussed about Krishna says that Shidashuna Sukha Dukkha Agamai Vanante. So this happiness and distress are like season, like in a summer season uh, and winter season and others. But Arjuna may ask a question. That's okay. This body pervades, the soul pervades in this body, but I am attached to the body, so that's why I'm lamenting. Then Krishna says, you should actually tolerate. So learn tolerate, and by learning the way of toleration, actually we can get liberated. So that's 15th verse. So amrutabhya kalpate. So sukham, sama sukha dukham dhiram. So the one who is learned, who is dhira, and he becomes a sama means equal, or in sukha and dukha, so he becomes equipoised. So that is the pathway for liberation. So Krishna says, so amrutabhya kalpate. So by that, actually we will become eligible for liberation. You becomes eligible for liberation. So just try to tolerate those sukha and dukha as we tolerate. Prabhupada gives an example, this parvat, like even in hot summer day, a mother, she goes inside the kitchen and she cooks for all of us, isn't it? Even in the very cold weather, if the sages, they used to take bath in the early morning with the cold water as well. So they don't care about this thing, because there's some rules and regulations to be followed, right? Having said that, let's continue from verse 18 today. So 18th verse, uh, where Krishna starts giving the more knowledge about this soul and body. We'll try to complete till 30 today, so that the section gets completed. See, so Krishna says, Antavatam eme deha nitya stoktva sarirani sharir uh, sorry sharirinaha. Then this saying that Krishna, this the metal body, Prabhupada writes in translation, this metal body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end, and therefore fight, O descendant of Bharata. Tasmat Yudhyasya Bharata. Anashino aparamesya Tasmat Yudhyasya Bharata. So Arjuna is lamenting for his body, and Krishna is giving this information that this body, actually the soul is important, and soul cannot be killed, and that soul uh, is immeasurable. It's eternal living entity, right? And the body, the metal body is going to be destructible. You cannot save this metal body in any condition. But on the other part, the soul is always remain eternal, and no one can, and Krishna says ahead that no one can bring it to end. So Prabhupada says in the purport that the metal body is perishable by nature. Even uh, definitely is going to be killed, either killed, or even someone will kill us, or will the time will take away this body at the end anyway. So it may perish immediately, or it may do so after 100 of years, but it's a matter of time. So in due course of time, this body has to go away, and there is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely, Prabhupada says in the purport. However, in the contrary, the spirit soul is so minute that it cannot even be seen by the enemy. So what to say of being killed? So it can be killed as well, right? So Krishna is giving the knowledge that the soul and the body, the two difference of the soul and body, what? The soul is eternal, it cannot be killed, and the body, even you try, it cannot be saved. So in the battlefield, if you do not kill now to them, going ahead in due course of time, it will be it will be perishable. It will be either killed by someone, as Kshatriyas, they fight and someone will kill, or it will be again taken away by time. Kala is there. The Kala Sarpa is Sarpa, Kala Sarpa. So I was listening a lecture sometime back, and it's been said that how Lord Shiva, he teaches us. He used to keep this snake in his neck, and that gives a teaching to us that the Kala Sharpa is actually always there in our neck. That Sarpa, it's invisible. We can't see that Sarpa, that the snake of time. We can't see it, but actually it's always hankering in our neck, and anytime it can, snake can bite and person can die, and it can take away our life, right? So that's how uh, the spirit soul is eternal, and as soon as the spirit soul leaves the body becomes to decompose, right? So, and then the body itself is, Prabhupada says the last line of this purport says the body itself is unimportant, and Arjuna was thus advised to fight not for the sacrifice, not fight and not sacrifice the cause of religion of metal, body, and consideration. So you should just fight for religion. That's more higher in this point of view. And then in next verse says that. Again Krishna is giving the information about more about knowledge, that neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge, for the self slays not, nor is slain. It means the self is basically the soul. So the soul never slays anyone, neither the soul is being slain. So the soul cannot kill anyone, and neither the soul is being killed, right? So again, next in next verses Krishna explains more about in the detail. But Prabhupada says in purport that the when an embodied living entity is hurt by a fatal weapon, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed, right? So the living entity, the consciousness, the soul is that's not being killed. It's just a hurt to our material body or Pancha Mahabhut only. However, the spirit soul is so small that it's impossible to kill him by any material weapon. And Krishna actually he talks in the language of Kshatriya in next couple of verses, that how it cannot be killed by any of the weapons, right? And in this verse, Prabhupada mentions again that the nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution, because it is eternal. Krishna says earlier as well, it is eternal, right? And now in these verses, Krishna in the next verse 20, Krishna is going to explain more. He says, न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचिन नायम भूत्वा भविता वा न भूय अजो नित्य शाश्वतोयम पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. So earlier we have discussed that Krishna says, you, the king, and I were existed earlier, we are now, and in future we will be existing as well, right? And now again the same thing Krishna tries to explain in a different way, that na jayate mriyate va kadachin. So for the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. Na jayate mriyate. Jayate is again birth, and mritya is dies. So the soul, there is no death, and neither it has birth. Nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuya. So it has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. I mean, it existed earlier, it existing now, it will going to exist in future as well. And that is ajo nitya. Ajo nitya means it is eternal, it is unborn. Nityam shashatoyam purano, it's ever existing and perennial. And na hanyate hanyamane sariro. So na hanyate, it not being killed when hanyamane sarira, when the body is being killed or body is being slain, this is which is unborn, eternal, ever existing, cannot be killed, and it remains there all the time. So in earlier we have discussed, like how uh, even the physical body gets changed from childhood to boyhood, for adult to an old age, the sizes and the physical body exchanges, but the spiritual spark, that remains the same across whole transition, isn't it? And then again Prabhupada again mentioned this purport about uh, this fragmental part of this, we are qualitatively the fragmental part of Supreme Spirit. And we have discussed earlier that it's the Krishna, or the super soul is Vibhu, and we are Anu. Krishna is unlimited, he's huge, and we are just tiny, very, very small, right? So the six changes that happens to the body, however, there is no change happens to There is no change there for the soul. The soul remain as it is, right? And however, the soul helps us to grow and other things, isn't it? Because of this, because of consciousness, because the soul is present, that's why we take, happiness, we experience distress, but the soul never experiences any of those. It never get changes, right? It makes sense. And again, Prabhupada mentions another verse from Katha Upanishad as well. The same kind of verse says, Jayate Mariyate va Vipashin Nayam Kutashin na Bhuta Kashchita Ajo Nitya Shashvato Yam Purano Na Hanyate Hanyamana Sharire. So the same kind of verse being already quoted in Katha Upanishad too. So, and then uh, Prabhupada explains in the purport very nicely that there are two kinds of soul. The one is minute soul, that is Anu Atma, and the another is the super soul, that is Vibhu Atma, or Vibhu Atma is the supreme Lord or super soul, the Krishna, and we are Anu Atma. So what the difference between these two is, this Vibhu Atma, there are a lot of differences, but in this context, the Vibhu Atma actually, he never forgets anything, but this Anu Atma, he forgets everything. Even if we just forget what we did a week back on the same time, right? It forgets everything. What we ate, it forgets. What color of dress we are wearing, we forget it. But this Vibhu Atma, he never forgets anything. He knows the past, he knows the present, and even he knows the future. This Anu Atma, he doesn't know the future as well. And onto that, Anu Atma, he just knows, even he doesn't know completely, but he knows about this only one body. Basically, I can know about my body, not fully, but still at least I know myself much more. But this Vibhu Atma, who actually pervades in every living entity, he knows about each and every Anu Atma as well. So I might not be able to understand what you are thinking, what you are, what your thought process, how, what everything is. But this Vibhu Atma knows about you, and he knows about me, and he knows about everything. But Anu Atma, he just knows something about only one body, right? So that's a just small difference between Anu and Vibhu Atma. But Vibhu Atma is also qualitatively we are equal, as we are eternal. The Paramatma, he is also eternal. It's also being described in Katha Upanishad that it's a in a though two birds in the same tree. Prabhupada says that both the super soul and the atomic soul, or Vibhu Atma or Anu Atma, they are situated on the same tree of the body, within the same heart of the living being, and only one who has become free from all material desires as well as lamentation can, by the grace of Supreme, understand the glories of soul. So understanding soul, or understanding basically who am I, is very, 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 very difficult, isn't it? And hence Krishna is the fountainhead of the supreme soul, and it will be disclosed in the following chapters. And Arjuna is atomic soul. So forgetful is his real nature, and therefore he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual masters. So we are the nature of Anu Atma is forgetfulness. We forget everything, and even though we might remember many things from our childhood or from our adult, but if when we leave this body, in our next body, we forget everything about this body. Even you ask us now, we do not remember what was our next previous body and where we were. It's very, very difficult. And some blessed soul, they used to remember it, but it's very, very rare. Just by the mercy of Krishna only we can remember our past life. Otherwise we forget everything. But Krishna remembers, not Krishna remembers about the past, present, and future of everyone. And when we go to chapter 4, Arjuna has actually asked this question to Krishna, when Krishna started saying that I have given this knowledge earlier to Vivaswan, and this knowledge falling coming in the head, but somehow or other it went off, so I'm re-establishing it. And Arjuna says, wow, you are just born, few days back, like, we are quite friends, but how would have given this knowledge to Vivaswan? Then Krishna says that, it's not like that. We have used earlier, but I remember everything and you forget everything, right? So that's point Prabhupada mentioned here as well, in this purport. And then Krishna says to Arjuna that the qualities of the starting with quality of souls. Veda vinashinam nityam yah enam ajam vavyayam katham sha purusham partha kam katham sha purusham partha kam ghatayati hanti kam. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, immutable, kill anyone and cause anyone to kill? So if something is eternal, means eternal, it can't be killed. Is immutable, it cannot be transferred as well. Isn't it? It goes to another body, but the soul remains, the identity of the soul remains as it is. It never changes. So the name we get of this body is because of body. Prabhupada explains this with one more context. He says, he asks a small child, sometimes, he says, what is this? The child says, it's my hand. So what is this? It says my head. Then Prabhupada says, what is this? He says, it's a leg. So we are saying it's my hand, my leg, my head. So where is my? What do we refer to my? When we say this is my book, it means that book actually belongs to me, right? But when I say my hand, then what this hand belongs to? Who is the one actually the owner of this hand? If I cut out this hand, then I say, okay, it's my hand, but the hand is not going to function anymore, because it's attached with this body. It's functioning. And who is the owner? Who is that my? Let's ask the question to our own self, and answer would be that my is actually the soul. Because of soul we can identify ourselves. However, when we identify ourselves in ignorance, without the consciousness of soul, we dwell in this material world. And so Krishna is saying that the soul is indestructible and is eternal and unborn. Hence, no one can kill him, neither he kills anyone. And just mind it, Krishna is speaking on the platform of soul and the body. And Prabhupada says here that everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply thing for its proper utility. So similarly, violence has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge, right? And you can see this example comes like the army men, right? So when the army men they fight, when they kill the enemies, they get rewarded. They get some recognition in the country that yes, you have done a good job by protecting this whole country, or this and that, right? However, just imagine the same person comes and without the instruction of anyone, he just go on shooting, right? He is going to punished. He's not going to get award now. So how to use it, that comes knowledge, because at the time that the army is fighting in the battle, he is taking the order of his superior, and he's fighting. That's why he's getting awarded. But if he fight whimsically and start killing, he is going to punished, right? So that's how there's everything has a proper utility as well. And even here Prabhupada in this purport gives an example of that a surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. So you know anyone cannot come and tear our heart and stomach and anything, but when we are sick, the doctor has the permission to do it. So anyone, if it comes and tears it, he'll get punished, or he need to caught. But when we are sick, the doctor has the permission to do it. So the surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but anyone can try to kill. He can actually try to cut the body as well. So the surgical operator or the doctor has the permission to do it. So that's why he is not being killed, or he's not being punished. But on the other hand, if anyone while you are walking on the street and he comes and attack us with some weapon, he is bound to get punished, right? So Prabhupada says that therefore the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Lord Krishna is with full knowledge. Why the fighting is important now? Because of establishing dharma. And if you remember, we have discussed that Arjuna, and even the Pandavas and Krishna also, they have tried all the possibility to avoid this war. But right now, we are in the middle of this battlefield, so it must continue. So, Prabhupada says that that's why there is no possibility of acquiring any sinful reactions. Why? Why there is no possibility of acquiring sinful reactions? Because Arjuna is fighting at the instruction of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. And Krishna, he is a supreme being, and he is giving these instructions to Arjuna to fight. That is because with full, complete knowledge. It's not talking whimsically. And hence, there is no sinful reactions going to come to Arjuna. And Arjuna said that, okay, we'll acquire sinful reaction as well. But Krishna saying, no, neither. And then next in 22nd verse, Krishna explains more about this knowledge about soul and body. He says, so earlier Krishna explains about the soul which pervades in the body, and the body grows from boyhood to childhood. Sorry, from from and all the stages of it grows from boyhood to adult and into old age and kind of things. And now Krishna says, how does this soul transforms from one body to another? He says, वाशांसि जीर्णानि यथा विहाय नवानि गृह्णन्ति नरोपराणि तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णानि अन्यानि संयति नवानि देहि. So as vashamsi jirnani yatha vihaya, as a person puts a new garment, giving up the old ones. So when we see the clothes when become torn up, or sometimes we say, okay, it's too old, I don't want to wear it anymore, right? And then we give it up and get the new one. In a similar way, tatha sarirani vihaya jinnani. So when this body becomes useless, the satha tatha sarirani vihaya jinnani. So when this body becomes old and useless, then in the similar way, anyani samvati namani dehi. So the soul accepts another body. Right, very very important verse. Actually, these three verses coming from here, that as understanding is as the body becomes useless, the body becomes old, the body is not capable of doing anything, then the soul comes out. And we may argue that okay, it might happen sometimes people they leave they leave their body in a very youthful or sometimes a child. So that's again is completely based on the karma as well. But the point is, even at that point of time, the soul thinks that this body is actually even the karma decides that this body is no more used for the soul, and hence it goes away. It gives up this body and takes another one, right? So the Prabhupada says that the change of body by atomic individual soul is an accepted fact. And even the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of soul, but at the same time they cannot explain the source of energy from the heart, and they have to accept the continuous change of the body which appears from childhood to boyhood, from boyhood to youth, and again from youth to old age. So from old age the change is transformed into another body, and this has already been explained earlier in 2.13 purposes, right? So that's how the changes happens for this body. In a similar way the changes happens for the soul too, right? Whenever we tied up with our old clothes, we throw it away. Sometimes we become torn. Even sometimes we buy new clothes and it get torn by here and there. Sometimes we fall down and get torn, so we used to throw it away. So that's how the soul takes another body. And now Krishna is talking about this soul cannot be killed. How it cannot be killed? Krishna is talking in a way of in a poetic way, because Arjuna is again a kshatriya, so poetic way in kshatriya stone. He says, nainam chindanti sastrani nainam dahati pavakah na chainam kledantyapo na shoshati marutah. So nainam chindanti shastrani. So this soul cannot be pierced by weapon. So Arjuna, now we have the weapons, but earlier they have very, very great weapons as well. By chanting the mantra, they can actually invoke the devatas onto their arrows, and that it can do this harm as it is. So like they can invite wind, they can invite agni, uh, in other the brahmastra and shivastra and pashupatrastra over there. So Krishna is saying that the soul can never be cut to pieces by the weapon. Naidam chintan desastrana. The because Arjuna is again, he's going to fight and he's going to leave the arrows, weapons. But Krishna is saying with your weapons also, you won't be able to cut the soul. Nainam dhati pavaka, nor it being burned by fire. So the soul can neither be cut by the weapon, neither be burned by the fire. Na chainam cleanti apo. It cannot be moistened by water. I think Gauranga Prabhu, he was explaining that, this earlier warrior, they were so, uh, they have so many mantras. By one person can, invite a fire, Agni, and he shoots arrow, and the Agni goes over there. But the opponent, if he's more learned, he can invite water on his arrow and put a water to counteract this Agni, right? So Krishna is saying that even by the water weapon, the soul cannot be moistened, and even not by the wind. By the wind weapon or water weapon or fire weapon or any kind of weapon, the soul cannot be cut, cannot be burned, cannot be moistened, cannot be withheld by wind. So that's explanation gives. And Prabhupada again makes this point as well. This the Mayavadi cannot explain how the individual soul come into existence simply by ignorance, and consequently they become covered by the illusory energy. So nor was it ever possible to cut the individual soul from the original super soul, from the original supreme soul. Rather, the individual souls are eternally separated parts of the supreme soul. And because they are atomic, individual souls eternally, they are prone to be covered by the illusory energy. Right. So that's why it's been said, when we are in this material world, this atomic soul, this living entity, they are covered by the three modes. But the super soul, supreme soul, it doesn't apply for him. Right. And Prabhupada mentions this again in the last point, that Arjuna become liberated by the knowledge received from Krishna, but he never become one with Krishna. So there's a misconception that we say that we can become God, or we can merge with Krishna, or we can become the Supreme Lord. That's not ever possible. Because Krishna says this soul is a living entity. Is individual, and it cannot be killed, it cannot be merged, it cannot be separated. So how it can merge as well, right? So the logic of being merging with Krishna or becoming God is being defeated by Lord Sri Krishna in these verses. And then again Krishna says more about on this soul, that the qualities of soul. He said that this individual soul is unbreakable, achedya, right? Achedya, it cannot be breakable in parts. So earlier it says cannot be killed, and now he's saying it cannot be breakable in parts, and neither it's insoluble, and can neither be burned nor dried. It cannot be dried as well. So he is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. So eternally we are the same, and it's everlasting. And what the meaning of present everywhere? Present everywhere means, so there is a difference between understanding of present everywhere of atomic soul and the understanding of present everywhere of the supreme soul. What the difference is, this individual soul is present everywhere means it present in every where, like even if in the form of animals, the soul can exist there, right? uh, Even it can exist in different kind of planets too. But when it comes to the supreme soul, it can actually live even within the each living entities. right? So that's the understanding. And the Prabhupada mentioned here that the word sarvagata or all pervading is significant because there is no doubt that the living entities are all over God's creation, and they live on the land, they live on the water, in the air, within the earth, and even within the fire. However, the belief that they are sterilized in fire is not acceptable because it is clearly stated here that the soul cannot be burned by fire. And therefore, there is no doubt that there are living entities also in the sun planet with suitable bodies to live there. It might get a confusion. How can person live in the sun? Just with a small example we can understand is, can we live underwater? Not possible. All right. So this body of ours, though it's a five pancha mahabhuta, even the body of a fish is pancha mahabhuta as well, but that body is kind of it's made in a such a way that it can sustain in water, and the similar way the fish cannot live in on the land. So we also created by this same pancha mahabhuta, and but we can live on the land, but we cannot live on the water. In the similar way, the body is being created in such a way in the sun planet that they can live in such sun planet, what we can't. Will get burned, right? So depending upon the situation, the what is the composition of pancha mahabhuta becomes more like, the fire. If the fire is more, then we can live in the fire. In the fish, they can actually live in the water, but we can't. So that's how we can understand that Prabhupada says that there is no doubt that the living entities are also in sun planet. It can also be understood very clearly that we see the sun god, isn't it? We see the Surya Devata. So he is a person, he is living there, isn't it? So that's how Sarvagata, or the living entity, is pervading everywhere, present everywhere, means it can live in the water, it can live in the air, in the earth, and even within fire, right? And that's for this living entity. And then continue, Krishna says more qualities of the soul. He says it is said that the soul is invisible. We can see the soul. We have discussed earlier that by taking the tip of our hair and dividing the tip into 10,000 parts, that's the small size of the soul, and that cannot be even seen by microscope, right? So the soul is invisible, however it's there, and it's inconceivable, and is immutable as well. And knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. So tasmat evam viditvenam nano shoshitam arhasi. So understand this, that the soul which is present in the body is not going to kill in any condition. However, the body on the counterpart will be killed in any condition. So it either you kill today, or in due course of time it will be killed. It will go away, leave the soul and leave the body, and the soul will go away and by leaving this body, right? So uh, that's the meaning of this purport, and the meaning of this verses, that even in 3 or 4 verses we can see that what Krishna says, that the soul cannot be killed, cannot be killed by weapons, cannot be burned, cannot be withered, and it's unbreakable, it's insoluble, it cannot be burned, cannot be dried up, and it's always existing, it's unchangeable, it's immovable, and eternally remain the same. Then it's invisible, inconceivable, immutable. So the individuality remains all the time of the soul. And that's how Prabhupada says that no one can deny the existence of his father, at based upon the authority of his mother. So Prabhupada says that the point here is, he means that we need to accept this truth. We accept this Vedic wisdom. So that's how Prabhupada gives an example, that there are many things we have to accept solely on the ground of super authority. And that's how he says no one can deny the existence of the father, and based upon the authority of his mother. So person can say, okay, I don't accept my mother. What I'll do, I'll just going to do DNA test for all this, living, all this man in this world, and try to find who is my father is. But if you try to do that, it I don't know when we will get the result, or either we will, the time will pass and we might not be there to get the result. However, we if we just accept what our mother says, then that's the authority, that's the truth. And that's how this the shastras are our mother, and we should accept shastra in that way, right? So Prabhupada says, similarly, there is no source of understanding the soul except by studying the Vedas, right? So understanding these Vedas, and again, uh, when we understand this knowledge with the instruction of, either Lord Krishna directly, or from his bona fide, uh, what do we say, representative, it makes more clear understanding to us. That's why Krishna also says early, is going ahead, he will say that we should take shelter of spiritual master. And even if we understand, see this in the very first chapter, though Arjuna was crying, though he was mentioning so many things, but Krishna didn't say any word. But as soon as Arjuna surrendered himself to Lord Sri Krishna, then Krishna started giving him knowledge as a spiritual master. So, and then now Krishna counteracts to Arjuna. We may ask a question again. Okay, what happens if I don't believe what Krishna says now? Even Krishna gives a very, very, in just one verse about the counteracting. Krishna says, "Atha chainam nitya yatam nityam va manashe mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainam shochatim arhasi." However, if you think, even if there are so many learned, this says about that, no, even if you think that the soul will always be born and die forever, it means this by dying of this body, the soul dies. Then also there is no point of lamentation. Even there are some philosophers, they say, still there are difference between soul and body, but still soul dies as well. But Krishna again in the next verse, he counteracts this one too again. He says, no, this is not true as well. Though he has given earlier the so many verses about the qualities of the soul, and now he's just answering Arjuna that even if you think that the soul will always born, then also there is no reason of lamenting for this soul or the body, right? And then uh, after saying this word, that even if you think that the soul dies as well, now Krishna clearly mentioned again. He says, "Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janma mrityuscha tasmad apariharte natam shoshatim arhasi." Krishna says, "Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu." So one who has taken birth is sure to die, and that's very, very fact for us. Everyone knows this. There is no doubt in that. And there's a nice verse and a nice understanding that says, everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die, right? So, but the fact is, everyone is going to die, and they don't know they're going to go to heaven or not, because that all defines about uh, our engagement of the three modes, how we have done. So one who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in this unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Krishna says earlier that, no, if you think the soul and the body dies, then also there is no point of lamenting. However, I'm saying that the one who has taken birth, he is sure to die, and after the death, one is sure to take birth again. So what that means is basically it's a for general understanding that one who takes birth is die, and one who die, he take birth again. So if the karma of the person is finished and he has taken the path of devotional service, he is not going to take birth anymore in this material world, but going back to Godhead. So how it happens, we can try to understand with a small example. Like, when we go to our kindergartens, we have no options to study. So everyone has to study A, B, C, D, and 1, 2, 3, 4. No options. So when we gradually go ahead, when we passes our 10th and primary and then high school, and then their options goes or more. Okay, depending upon your inclination towards chemistry, you may become chemical engineer, or inclination towards medicine, you may become doctor, or towards other, you may become some a politician or something else and something else and something else. That depends on our inclination. So the way we live our life, that also defines that how is going to take our next life too. Because we are inclined to something, we are inclined to sense gratification. So Krishna is merciful, he's going to fulfill our desire. In next birth, he's going to skip something more. And Prabhupada, if you see in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada gives the photo as well. I'm not sure if it's there in this one. Yes, in this one as well. I'll show you this picture. So yeah, if you can see this picture, no, if you can open in Bhagavad Gita, I can see this picture. Here, Prabhupada, in this picture, he says that if someone is too much, his inclination is too much towards eating meat, but still we cannot fulfill the desire completely in this living and in this body. So he takes a birth of a lion or tiger, so that he just only eats the meat for his whole life. And Prabhupada also gives example, like if if someone is more inclined toward exposing their body, right, and then in next birth they will get the body of tree, so they remain unclothed for the years and years and years. So as said, in this material world, as for the inclination of persons towards chemistry, towards physics, towards science and other things, the diversity goes. In the similar way, the way we live our life, that defines our next destination, our next life. Because as one is born, the body is there, death is coming as well. So it's the point is for body, the body takes birth and is going to die as well, right? uh, However, Krishna is making this point here that uh, you should fight for the right cause of the duty of a Kshatriya. So there is no point of lamenting. Anyway, one who has taken birth is going to die. So you should not deviate yourself from the path uh, of a Kshatriya. And Krishna again continues here saying that all created beings are unmanifested in their beginning. They manifest in the interim state, and they unmanifest again when annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? So again, there is no point of lamentation, because we have seen when annihilation happens, so we all go and merge back into Mahavishnu's body. When the creation happens, depending on our desires and this, Krishna wants to fulfill those, and he creates this cosmos and throws us in different areas so that we can fulfill our desires. And if we have the desire to go back to Godhead, Krishna fulfills that, and even he is more eager for us to come towards him, right? Prabhupada gives an example in this chapter, in this purport here. He says, taking it for example, a big skyscraper manifested from the earth. However, when it is dismantled, the manifestation becomes again unmanifested and remains as atoms in the ultimate stage. And so though the law of conservation of energy remains, but in course of time, things are manifested and unmanifested. That is the difference. So the living entity, we are actually there, and we will be there, but this body, what to talk about this body, this universe is remain or not, no one knows. Anyway, after the time of Lord Brahma's year is going to destroy it, comes to go back and merge into Mahavishnu. So the creation happens from Mahavishnu, and at the end everything goes back into his body as well, right? So we'll take two more verses, and actually it might take a bit longer. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll continue from verse 29th in the next coming Monday. Actually, this verse is called, Ashcharya, Ashcharya verse, or amazing verse. So because some people see the soul as amazing. Some people speak about the soul as amazing. Some people, even knowing this as amazing, they aren't able to understand this amazing soul. So we'll continue from 29 tomorrow on Monday, because there are just two more verses, 29 and 30, for this section of Bhagavad Gita, and then we enter the first application of Atma Gyan. So this section is Atma Gyan, and the next section of second chapter is application of this Atma Gyan. How can we understand and apply in our day-to-day life, right? Okay, anyone have any questions or thoughts? We can discuss for 5 minutes if it's there, and otherwise we'll meet on Monday. And again apology for yesterday, I could not do this session. Okay, so I understand there is no question. We can stop here, pause here. So ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की
Jai.
श्रील प्रभुपाद की
Jai.
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की
Jai.
हरे कृष्ण. So
Hare Krishna.
I was thinking about our